One of the next things we're going to discuss is embroidery backings, or also known as stabilizers. These are something that are very, very important for quality work, and they can be a little confusing because, like everything else, so many options. We've got cutaway, tearaway, other options, we've got pre-cuts, we've got rolls, we've got all different sorts of options. So let's just dive into this and learn a little bit about backings. Using the wrong backing in the wrong application is going to lead to things like thread breaks and puckering, those poor looking quality issues that do not help your work sell. We want to do the highest quality work and give it the longest life that we can, so our customers are very happy and keep coming back time after time. This is the stuff that helps support your work and make it look great. So don't use something that's not meant for the job. I've heard of people using things like wax paper or other types of household supplies for backing. Don't do that. They were not made to support your beautiful work. So don't put anything that doesn't belong behind your work. Definitely get quality commercial grade backings for your job. Like philosophy, there's no right answer. You can get great results using a variety of different products. So we're going to dive into some of those products and options so that you can understand more about the weight, the color options, why you would choose different colors of backings, and kind of start to identify what's going to work in what scenario. The purpose of the backing or stabilizer is not only to give your work the stability during sew out, it's going to help support the fabric, stop fabric movement, and it's also going to give the garment a longer life. So think of those items that are regularly getting washed. You want that embroidery to look as good before it was washed as it does after. So that's one of the differences in choosing the right backing too. You want to make sure that it's not just good in the hoop. It needs to look good on the person after they've worn and washed it. It needs to look just as good then too. Let's discuss backing weight. Weight does not equal stability, okay? So let's just get that straight right now. Just because something is super thin and almost like see-through does not mean it can't support really, really heavy stitch outs. So that is one of the kind of myths that I want to make sure to get worked out right away. The backing weight is going to help determine how well it sews out, but it's also going to help how it affects the garment it's being put on. So you want to marry the characteristics of the garment to the characteristics of the backing. And weight does not mean that we should be afraid to put something like this behind something that's getting a pretty heavy stitch out. It simply is more so that we want it to hold the stitches well and do its job that it needs to, but also to not affect the drape and the original characteristics of the fabric being embroidered in the first place. Think about things like tight registration, high stitch count. Those are things to consider when choosing the backing weight and type as well. And you can go from a 2.5 ounce to a 3 ounce, and all of a sudden you have resolved registration issues. And what that means is when you've sewn out your item that has an element here and a border that's supposed to match here, and you get this little gap or pucker in between, taking it to a 3 ounce backing could resolve it right there. There's digitizing things that can be done too, but let's face it, if you've got just a couple to knock out, you're not going to go back to the drawing board and test stitch out until you get the good results. You're just going to grab the right backing and be on your way. I want to talk just a little bit more about how to pair the characteristics of the backing with the characteristics of the fabric. So this is a good example. It's a sweatshirt. It seems like, oh, that'd be a great, you don't have to worry about anything with that, right? But notice it's very drapey, it's very comfortable and flexible. So if we put too sturdy of a cutaway, for instance, on this, you may actually affect how it drapes. We don't want to do that. So one of the things you can do is kind of hold the fabric and feel its characteristics, see how light and flexible it is, and then start to pick through your backings and make sure that whatever your fabric characteristics are, you're pairing with this. Now this sweatshirt isn't as flexible. It's just a more basic kind of sturdy sweatshirt. I would not be so worried about putting any backing option on this garment. The more flexible ones are where you're going to really have to be careful and choose wisely to make sure that the backing is really, really not affecting the original characteristics of the fabric. Cutaway backing is my go-to for everyday projects. And the reason is because it gives the life of the garment a little bit longer support, because during laundering, of course, it's still there, unlike some other backings. And the thing about this is cutaway is not just one kind, okay? We've got different kinds of cutaway. So all of these are different weights and types of cutaway. So where would we use cutaway backing? Think things that are going to get washed regularly and worn often. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, polos, maybe even certain bags or different items like that. Blankets if they have an embroidery pocket. So cutaway backing is a very, very good option. The downfall? Well, after we embroider it, we have to clean it up. We turn it inside out. We trim the tails if need be on the embroidery, making sure not to trim the knots off of it. You don't want your beautiful work to unravel. And then you're going to go ahead and clean it up around the edges. You want to be sure that you're holding it so you can actually see the sweatshirt. You don't want to have it hidden behind the backing and risk putting a hole in that garment, because now you're all the way through with the project and then you trim a tiny little hole that cannot be repaired. So definitely hold it so that the fabric drapes down and you can see what you're doing as you cut it away. And I like to cut very smooth edges a little bit outside of the margin of the embroidery, so you have a little bit of area there. And just cut it smooth. Don't do a hack job. Think of the steakhouse comparably that puts out a plate with gravy slopped all over it compared to the one that wipes the plate and it's beautiful when it's delivered to your table. Even though it's on the inside, it definitely changes the overall review of your work to have a very clean cut edge. This is a soft cut, as is this. They're different weights and obviously different sizes. It is going to be the #1 go-to backing choice for most embroiderers. Anybody stitching on anything from t-shirts to sweatshirts to polos and things like that, they're going to do a soft cut. It's very soft to the feel and it's very sturdy. It will hold your work very well. Next up is Pro-Fit. It comes in different colors, just like all the others. I forgot to mention with the soft cut, it does come in black or white as well. And the Pro-Fit is a popular choice for a little bit lighter weight, less sturdy, and those fabrics that are going to be the more flexible or drapey type of characteristics. This is not as soft in feel, but it is definitely a good choice for performance wear and the lighter weight sweatshirts and things like that. T-shirts, definitely those too. Here's my favorite backing, the poly mesh backing. Now I like this a little bit more than the Pro-Fit for the simple reason that it is a little softer feel. So in places like onesies, polos that touch the skin, and performance wear, I really, really love this backing. The other thing is it comes in fusible option. So if you get that really lightweight, stretchy fabric that likes to push, pull, and pucker and distort the design during sew out, the fusible option is great. Once you've fused it onto the fabric, it's going to really bond it, and then you hoop it and it's really going to stay in place during the sew out. So that's a really good way to fix registration issues and or puckering and movement issues that you're going to see in those really high stretch fabrics. It's also great in other applications like no-show. So think of that yellow shirt. We've all seen it where you see the white backing cut out behind the embroidery. This is going to give you a little bit less noticeable backing, but it's still a very rigid backing that's going to hold a lot of stitches. Now that we've covered cutaway, let's talk about the next most popular option, which is tearaway. Now this backing is not going to be quite as sturdy during sew out, so if you have high registration designs, you may consider using a heavier weight because it does come in different weights, or using 2 layers. This is the only, well, almost the only time I recommend 2 layers. When you do, take your second layer and turn it 1 turn. You'll notice it's not quite perfectly square. That's partly so you know if you've done that. This is going to allow a little bit more stability because the grain of the backing is going 2 different ways now versus 1. So if you have high registration designs or you have a lot of stitch count, that's an option to try to keep it in place the best you can during the sew out. After it's been embroidered, you're going to peel away or pull or tear away what you can reach and get at. You can use tweezers, your fingers, whatever works, but you're going to gently pull towards the design and hold down on the design to make sure that you're not distorting or kind of ripping aggressively. Of course, because you tear it away, it's not going to live under that embroidery for the garment's life. So think of things that aren't laundered as much, like scarves, beanies, blankets, maybe even some towels, different things like that. Typically, that's my go-to. Not to say you couldn't use this in your everyday work. Just keep in mind that after it's laundered, the shirt may ripple and pucker more than with a cutaway backing under it. Obviously, the advantage is that you don't have to bring a scissors into the mix to clean it up, and it's pretty fast and easy. So there is that. It does come with its advantages. So you have some options. When you're using this, you get to choose white or black. It's nice because whatever's left over may look a little cleaner if it matches the color of the garment being sewn on. You can also get some specialty options that are actually tear and or wash away, so that whatever's left after you tear it away is actually going to wash away when it's laundered. So there's those options as well. There is tear away that has a sticky side, and that's handy for things like this that are super, super stretchy. It will stop movement during the sew out. So if you're getting a distorted logo or you're seeing a lot of puckering, you may try something like that to resolve that issue. Tearaway backing is most common on things that the back is visible, but even though this has a flap, it's not a heavy stitch out, so I went ahead and did tearaway on it as well. So you can put this into applications where your backside is definitely going to be seen on items like scarves, blankets without embroidery pockets, towels, and other items such as that. It's nearly always recommended to use the tearaway option on caps, and there is a smaller, shorter roll or pre-cuts available for that application. And almost always you can get away with a 1 layer, but you definitely can layer it up. You can get it in 1.5 ounce or 3 ounce, so there's options there too. All right, we've covered the basics of normal backings. Now let's talk about a specialty backing. This is a water-soluble backing. It's very tough, holds a lot of stitches, but it actually dissolves to nothing. That allows for stitching on things like cut work or freestanding lace, and also no-show. So like even the poly mesh would show through this garment, but with the water-soluble mesh, I was able to stitch on this and then wash it all away so it has no backing left over. So there's different types of wash away backings. There are tearaway wash away. There is the wash away mesh. We call this Vilene or wash away. And there's also a product like Badge Master, which is great for patches and cut work and freestanding lace as well. And I believe to make this, I probably used 2 layers of the wash away mesh. 1 layer of the Badge Master would probably do just the same. So those are some other kind of unique options for those weird applications that you don't necessarily run across every day. If you're like me as the newbie embroiderer, you jump online to order your backings, order your supplies, and you're instantly overwhelmed with the options. There's a gazillion sizes and a gazillion different packaging options, different colors, different weights, and the whole works. I have simplified this because I was very overwhelmed in the beginning with what backings to use when, and once I got them, I would undo my packaging like this, and I would go to order it and go, what the heck is this? How do I know what I'm getting? And that I can get the same thing again because that worked great. So one of the things we've done is created our common sense label system where it actually shows us things like the name, kind of important, and how many pieces are in here, the weight, the size, if it's tearaway, cutaway, or something else, and some suggested uses. So at a glance, you could look at your labels and kind of help decide which backing is right for the job that you're ready to do. It also talks about the price per sheet, so it makes pricing easy. And we have videos that you can scan on the label. You can scan and see how to use that product and different suggestions for use, as well as a reorder scan. So you can take your smartphone, scan that, and it takes you right to that page for this one is soft tearaway. So it would take you right to that page, and then a drop-down menu gives you the option for what size and color you want in different quantities. So that's, and notice it's a resealable bag too, which is great. It makes the label stay with the product. It's going to allow you to do any size that you want. It takes a little more time, of course, to cut it into the size that you need. The pre-cuts are going to save you some time. The pre-cuts we sell at the time being is 8 by 8 inch, and that fits a left chest or right chest application very, very well. The most common hoop paired with that is the 5.5, and you think, oh, go ahead and order a 6.5 inch backing. It's not quite big enough to make it to the edge of your hoop. So that's why we've selected the 8 by 8 to keep life simple and give you the best results we can. We don't want piles of backing sitting around taking up your space that you're not going to use. We've simplified our options that we sell as well so that it's a little less overwhelming. You'll find a very simplified variety of sizes and variety of types. So our goal is that you move through the motions and keep that machine rolling, because that's what you get paid to do, not to shop for backings and become overwhelmed. I hope that answers your most basic questions and maybe some even further into detail of the backing stabilizer situation. You now have a better understanding, but again, I don't expect that you're going to remember all of this just like that. So make sure to use our cheat sheets and the downloads available that come with this video.